Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here today to talk about science. Has everybody had their mind and energy to get through a science presentation? Great, great. Here at Asea, we have a vision to become the global leaders in redox and cellular health. With that vision comes responsibility. Anytime you assume the role of leader, there is a responsibility to lead from the front. So with our vision comes the responsibility of performing research in the area of redox, educating on its benefits and raising awareness about the life-changing opportunities that come with redox, and continuing to build products that leverage the technology to change people's lives. Now, earlier this year, in an effort to raise awareness and to help people understand how redox works and what are the benefits that to be had from redox, we released some key words. These key words are an effort to boil down what are complicated topics and make them easy to understand. So today, in addition to talking about some research that we're extremely excited about to share with you today, we're going to talk about some foundational principles about redox. But before we go into the keywords and how to be able to understand these, we need to understand redox as a whole at a foundational level. So first, redox. What is redox? Redox is simply a contraction of two words, reduction and oxidation. And I love this quote. This quote is extremely profound and will be important to our discussion later. Life is nothing but electrons looking for a place to rest. Remember that, looking for a place to rest. But what is an electron? An electron is a very small negatively charged particle. These particles have a ton of energy associated with them. And the concept of electron transfer, which is central to redox, is the process by which an electron is transferred from one species to another. Redox is the transfer of electrons, and the transfer of electrons is the transfer of energy. You cannot achieve cell signaling without energy. Now remember, looking for a place to rest. I want to go through this simple demonstration, this simple example to illustrate what I mean, looking for a place to rest. Imagine a ball on top of a hill. What happens if I give it a nudge? We all know intuitively that the ball rolls down the hill. When I go through this experiment with people in this thought experiment, I say, hey, so why did the ball roll down the hill? And I almost always receive the answer, well, gravity. We all know that gravity pulls the ball down the hill. And then I ask the question, well, why does gravity pull the ball down the hill rather than push it up the hill? What is gravity doing? What is gravity trying to take from the ball? And the answer is energy. I heard it. At the top of the hill, the ball has potential energy. But what did we hear in that quote? Looking for a place to rest. Everything in this universe is looking for a place to rest. The ball contains energy at the top of the hill that it does not at the bottom. So when nudged, it will spontaneously roll down the hill looking for a place to rest. So now let's apply this to electrons. When we talk about redox, we talk about electron transfer. Why would an electron transfer? Well, if we think about the ball rolls down the hill to achieve a resting place. Much like the ball, electrons transfer to achieve a state of rest. In chemistry, we use the term oil rig. Oxidation is lose, reduction is gain. So when a species is oxidized, it is giving up an electron. When a species is reduced, it is gaining an electron. Now, why does that electron transfer from species A to species B? It's because there's a lower energy level available in that second species. That electron is looking for a place to rest. And when it transfers, it releases its energy. So now that we understand why electrons transfer and that energy is released upon a redox transfer, let's talk about how do we make redox signaling molecules. Redox signaling molecules are tiny, high-energy molecules. To make these molecules, we use a patented process to create these high-energy molecules. We start at the bottom curve there with sodium chloride, salt. Salt is relatively low energy, and when we dissolve it in water, it goes down the energy curve. You can see the ball rolling down the hill to a low-energy saline. Now, with that said, the question is why does salt dissolve in water? The answer is salt is at a lower energy level dissolved in water than as a solid. Salt is looking for a place to rest. Now, in order to achieve cell signaling, energy is required. Salt does not have enough, saline doesn't have enough, so we have to introduce energy into the system. So with our patented process, we push the ball back up the hill, so to speak. But we don't want to go back up to the same hill. We want to go to a different hill, a hill of higher energy, the hill of signaling molecules. Now there on the left of the graph there, you can see we have energy on the y-axis there. In redox chemistry, energy is called redox potential. So when we say at Asea, we power potential, we do not simply mean your potential as an individual, your potential to change the lives of those around you, and the potential of your business. We mean very literally, we power the potential of your cells to signal and communicate. Okay, so we're going to dive into these signaling molecule keywords because they're going to pop up in the research that we're going to present here shortly. I like to go through the keywords very succinctly so that everybody understands how they're related. Cell signaling molecules are tiny, high-energy molecules. Because they are tiny, they can be absorbed directly into the cell. Once they're absorbed, they act as an on-off switch, turning on signaling within the cell. Once that cell is on, it signals to the cells around it. Those cells signal to the cells around them, beginning a cascade or domino effect. And it's this cascade or domino effect that contributes to our resilience to stress and overall wellness. Okay, so we talked about tiny molecules. Now, what we want to do is we want to say, okay, because they're tiny, they can be absorbed, right? We've done studies at the corporate office, at our labs, and we have found that absorption happens very rapidly with signaling molecules because they are tiny. We have found that the majority of the signaling molecules are absorbed within the first 15 to 30 seconds in the mouth. That's why we recommend that you swish it before you drink. Once you swallow, the absorption continues throughout the body. But what does it mean to be absorbed? Well, in the case of signaling molecules, they undergo what's called passive absorption, meaning because they're so tiny, they're free to pass through the cell membrane without permission. They can be readily accessible to the cell and absorbed so they can go straight to work. Okay, so signaling molecules are tiny molecules that are absorbed into the cell. Once they're absorbed, it flips the switch on in the cell. Once that cell is turned on, it begins to communicate with the cells around it. Those cells begin to communicate with the cells around them. And that begins the cascade or domino effect. You can see here as that signal spreads throughout the cellular network. And it's this cell signaling cascade, this domino effect, that contributes to our overall health and wellness, our resilience to stress. Now, this concept of resilience to stress is extremely important. And I want to pause here because this is an important concept. Your overall health and wellness, your ability to maintain your health, is almost entirely dependent on your ability to respond to stress. Let me say that again. Your ability to maintain your health is almost entirely dependent on your ability to respond to stress. So let's imagine I'm in the middle of a sawhorse here, trying to do a balancing act. What happens is I'm exposed to stress and knocked off center, knocked off balance, knocked off homeostasis. Again, central to my ability to maintain my health and well-being is my ability to respond to that stress. Redox signaling molecules enable us to respond to stress and get back to center. So as a quick review, before we move into the research, tiny molecules are high energy molecules. Signaling molecules are tiny high energy molecules. Because they are tiny, they can be absorbed into the cell. Once absorbed, they act as an on-off switch, turning on cell signaling. Once a cell is turned on, it signals to the cells around it. Those cells signal to the cells around them, beginning the cascade or domino effect that contributes to our resilience to stress and overall wellness. Now again, at the beginning of this presentation, I talked about our vision. We take this responsibility of being the global leaders in cellular health and redox-based technologies extremely seriously. We invest heavily in product development and research. We know this product can change lives all around the world as it has already done so. So this year, we've been conducting research with partners around the world, at universities around the world. And we want to share some of those results today. And to help me do that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Andrea Borges.
Good morning, everyone. You ready for some science? Yeah. Okay, I hope you took your energy and your mind this morning, because I really need your focus, a little bit of your energy, and a lot of memory. So, thank you, Hunter, for the introduction, and I would really like to express my gratitude for this amazing opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here to share some very exciting news that we obtained with our research, and I want to share this with all of you today. Well, over the past months, our team has been working very hard on different projects. We want to understand better the redox signaling molecules and their effects in our body and in our cells. So it has been a journey, and we know that science is very complicated. So it's been a journey of dedication, collaboration, and a lot of hours of very hard work. And I'm very glad to report today some of the results that we obtained and that hold very important and significant good implications for our company. So before that, I would like to go back to 2017, when the Tarot Lab performed a very nice and very important test with the Asea Redox, our blue bottle. Let's talk a little bit and very briefly about this study and how it connects to our current projects nowadays. So a quick recall of this study: it was an 8-week double-blind placebo-controlled human trial. There we go again with those big names, right? But just for you to know, you don't have to remember anything like that, but just for you to know, this is a big name, just to say that it's a valid and very robust method, and that validates our test and the effectiveness of a compound or an ingredient or a chemical, and in our case, ARS, or the Asea Redox. TARED study showed that several genes were tied to key functions and very important pathways in the cells. And few of these genes were upregulated, meaning that the cells were making more of these proteins because the genes were turned on, like Hunter just mentioned, right? Genes were turned on in the group of subjects that took Asea Redox. So among these genes, there were 5 genes that were turned on. These very complicated names, right? But in the left column, we can see the names of these genes. And in the other column, we can see how much the gene expression increased compared to the group that did not receive Asea Redox. Even though they're complicated names, all we need to know is that they are very important because each one of these genes is related to different pathways that will produce specific proteins in our cells. The TARED study showed that Asea Redox impacted the modulation of 5 different genes. These genes are related to many pathways, and here we listed 15 important pathways that these genes are related to. So inside each of these blue squares, we can see the name of the pathways that these genes are related to. They're all very important for our overall health and resilience. I know they're very complicated names, but looking at the pathways, we decided to go deep to understand some of them. And the first one that we chose and that we want to understand better, it's an important pathway that is totally related to oxidative stress, which is the NRF2 pathway. So Asea partnered with universities around the world to find out the relation between redox signaling molecules and NRF2. Once again, I'd like to highlight that these are all very crucial pathways for cellular function. They're all very important for cellular health and, again, for cellular function. So in order to start to understand the Asea Redox mechanism of action and the function of redox in our body, we narrowed down the studies to NRF2. But why did we choose NRF2? Why, among all of these pathways, these 15 pathways, why did we choose NRF2? Well, first of all, because we learned that NRF2 pathway is responsible for turning on and off genes that are very essential to produce protective proteins that will combat harmful compounds in our body. Remember that Hunter mentioned switching on and off? So that's what NRF2 does, is it turns on and off important genes. And this pathway also functions like a master switch, you know, the light master switch that turns lights on and off. So that's how we compare this pathway. We also understand that NRF2 is a crucial regulator of oxidative response. It promotes cellular resilience to stress. Another thing that Hunter also mentioned before, it promotes cellular resilience to stress. So our cells are able to be challenged. What does that mean, resilience to stress, right? It means that our cells are able to be challenged by insults and respond and restore their functions just because the stimulation of NRF2 pathway brings back the balance of the cell. So remember this, resilience to stress. That's what NRF2 is related to. And finally, because genes that respond to NRF2 pathway, they are involved in protection of the cells against oxidative stress. Well, actually, the NRF2 is one of the major pathways in our body that is involved in the adaptation to stress. When we activate, when we turn on an NRF2 pathway, we create more antioxidant proteins in a very natural way. And this is really important because it's physiological, it's how our body works. And this is really good because it allows our body to fight oxidative stress. So, in order to study and move forward and understand the research on NRF2, Asea partnered with 2 different important universities around the world. Currently, we are doing research with University of Bath in the UK to determine if Renew28 modulates NRF2, and Western Sydney University in Australia. We partner with them to investigate the role of Asea Redox in the activation of NRF2. So far, we obtained very interesting results regarding the activation of NRF2 by Renew28 and by Redox, by the Asea Redox. And I would like to dive a little bit more into the science of these 2 universities and the results that we obtained from them. And with that, I would like to start with the University of Bath. University of Bath tested Renew28 in skin cell cultures, and the scientists from Bath divided the experiments in 2 groups. If you're in the science behind Redox on Wednesday, we talked about it. It's very important to have 2 different groups in the tests, in the experiments. One of the groups is the control group. This control group never receives any kind of treatment. The other group is the group that will receive the treatment. In this case, the cells were treated with Renew28. So with these 2 different groups, they performed 2 different experiments. So in each experiment, there were 2 groups. The first experiment, we wanted to evaluate Renew28 if Renew28 increased the production of glutathione. Glutathione is one of those protective proteins that we just talked about that NRF2 can modulate. So Renew28 was added to skin cell cultures, and the amount of glutathione produced by these cells was measured. So we observed there that when Renew28 was added to the skin cultures, glutathione production increased by 40% compared to the control that did not receive Renew28. And I want to highlight here, and remind you that glutathione is a protective protein, okay? In the second experiment, and I actually love this experiment, and I love this result, it shows something very unique. And it was really a surprise even to me. These results are represented in this graph that it just came up. And it said that the glutathione production was blocked with a very specific glutathione blocker. Okay? That means that the production of glutathione was not happening in those cells. Then, when they realized and they were able to measure a 0 production of glutathione, they added Renew28 to this cells that were not producing glutathione. What was the result? The result, this is what happened. When they added Renew28, the cells were able to restore glutathione production by 55%. So what does that mean? When our body is under stress, these protective proteins can be compromised. The production of them is compromised. And we're always under stress, right? What we saw here, these results might suggest that Renew28 can restore the production of glutathione. Glutathione, again, is a protective protein in the skin when the skin is under stressful conditions. So, now that we know, and we got to know that Renew 28 increased glutathione levels, the next step was to understand if Renew 28 was activating NRF2 pathway. Because glutathione was there, how was the relationship between glutathione and the cells and Renew 28 and NRF2? Remember that NRF2 pathway, again, is the master switch to turn on and off genes that will produce protective proteins. And glutathione, again, is one of those protective proteins. So this part of the study, different dyes were used because they provide color to the experiment to facilitate and to facilitate the understanding of the results. So let's understand these pictures, these images, and these colors. The upper pictures, the upper images are related to the tests with skin cells, and these skin cells did not receive Renew 28. The bottom images are related to the tests where Renew 28 were added to the cells. So the skin cells received Renew 28. So after the treatment, the cells were analyzed for the presence of NRF2. Let's understand the colors now, what blue and what green means. The pure green images show that there is NRF2 inside the cells. Everything that is green is NRF2. The blue color is just the nucleus of the cell. So in the last column, there's an overlap with those two images. So we overlapped green and blue, and we create new images with new colors because these two colors were mixed. And this will help us to understand where things are happening inside the cells. In this case, we know that Renew 28 activated NRF2, and we also know that NRF2 is working in the nucleus because the original blue color of the nucleus mixed with the green color of NRF2 and turned into a kind of aqua blue when we overlap both of them. And this is happening only in the bottom image, where the cells were treated with Renew 28. So with that, we can understand and we can observe that NRF2 can only stimulate gene expression when it's in the nucleus. And this result means that NRF2 is there in the nucleus regulating gene expression, turning genes on and off. And taking together both of these results from Beth, the first one that we showed and this one, we can conclude that those are very, very amazing findings that suggest that Renew 28 promote the production of protective proteins, in this case, glutathione. And we could also conclude that this production happens through the NRF2 pathway. Another study that we performed now with Asea Redox was performed in Australia by the Western Sydney University. It was also an in vitro study using cultured cells to study the effects of Asea Redox on NRF2. So cells were again cultivated in the presence or not of Asea Redox. This study is very important because it showed us that Asea Redox, the blue bottle, increased NRF2 activation in about 160%. So what does that mean? It means that genes responsible to produce protective proteins, and some of them are listed there, and you have to memorize all of them, That's why we need a lot of memory, just kidding. Okay, so those protective proteins can be regulated and those genes can be turned on and off to start to work. When they're turned on, they start to work and produce these protective proteins. These are some of the antioxidant genes that can be regulated, that can be turned on by NRF2. It also means that the antioxidant response system is on in the cells. It means Asea Redox turned the switch on in a very natural way. And turning on a switch in a very natural way is very important to our body, because our body is already under stress. We don't want more stress if it's not physiological, if it's not natural. And Asea Redox promotes that, promotes this genes to be turned on and off in a very natural way. So what we can conclude from both Bath and Western Sydney studies? First, we can conclude that Asea Redox, as well as Renew 28, meaning redox signaling molecules, right, found in these products activate NRF2. Also, that redox signaling molecules in Asea Redox and in the Renew 28 activated the master switch regulator, that's NRF2, to fight oxidative stress. And finally, this activation will lead to the production of those protective proteins. In this case, in the case of the study that we conducted in Bath, it was glutathione. So this antioxidant and these protective proteins, they are part of the antioxidant system, and it's very, very important to the cells because this is the system that will allow the cells to adjust and respond better to stress. It will help our cells to develop processes to be resilience, to be more resilient, and to adapt to stress. Remember, those were one of the words of the 5 keywords in the redox signaling. So it will promote overall well-being, which matches directly to our vision, which is to become the recognized global leader in cellular health and redox-based technologies. So now, we would like to discuss a little bit more about this vision. And for that, I would like to invite back to stage our VP of Production Operation, Hunter Dean.
How about it, huh? NRF2, right? The left side seems to be more excited about NRF2 than the right side. That's okay. Okay, there we go. There we go. Great.
Because they had to know all those pathways, you know.
That's true. They were waiting for the pathways, right? Okay, so we are committed to continuing research and educating about the benefits of redox. Andrea brought up a slide showing 15 different pathways that cascade down from redox signaling molecules upregulating the genes, that on-off switch. We're going to continue to do research to solidify our position as leaders in the redox space. What I'd like to do now is to bring up a panel of experts from our medical professional board who volunteer their time to collaborate with us to help to direct research and product development. Please welcome to the stage Drs. Richard Michael, Dr. Carolyn Hoffman, and Dr. Aaron Kaufman. Okay, great. So first off, I'd like to kind of go through each one of you here. We talked about NRF2. And the benefit of NRF2. Sometimes that's difficult to understand, right? NRF2, gene modulation, these are all concepts that are somewhat intimidating to try and dissect and understand. If someone were to ask one of you, let's start with Aaron, please explain in a simple way NRF2 to me and why is it important? What would you say?
Well, if you asked, I would explain it, but it's over most people's head that I'm talking to about Asea. But if they asked, I would say NRF2 is a genetic pathway, a switch that Asea turns on. It activates it in a natural way. And it activates glutathione, superoxide dismutase, and which are the master antioxidants inside our cells, as well as some others that help to balance out cellular function, help us to detox and keep our cells healthy.
Great. Carolyn, how about you?
My answer would be if the alarm system, the fire alarm system, went off in your hotel today, you would hope that the sprinkler system in every room would activate. And RF2 is the alarm system in our cell to activate the internal sprinkler system in every cell to pour out antioxidant enzymes and put out the fire.
Well done. I changed my figure of speech here to try to explain this, because I saw Scott in the gym yesterday and I thought of something different. Imagine yourselves in a tug of war. And it's good to have a tug on the other end, because if it's limp, you're not going to strengthen your muscles, right? So we all need a tug on the other end of that rope. Tugs are good. We build our muscles. We're learning balance. We're learning all sorts of things. Our bodies are like that. We need some stress in our bodies. But when it gets to be too much, they've pulled in Scott on the other side of that rope. Holy smokes, folks, we're in trouble now, because he looks like he can exert a big pull. In fact, it is a big pull, and we're being pulled the wrong way. What the NRF2 pathway does, and really honestly what this product does, and what you should have seen today, is that we can now send signals. We need some help. We need to balance this pull, and we're going too far one direction. So we're going to get Hunter, and we're going to get a few other big body guys on our end of that rope, and we'll get back to an equilibrium where life is good. So that's what I see the NRF2 doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Great. Yeah.
I'm just happy that Dr. Michaels thinks that I can pull against Scott.
All right, so Hunter, you mentioned about redox, you explained about redox, oxidation, reduction. So Carolyn, how would you introduce redox to someone who hasn't heard about it?
That's a great question. As a naturopath, I always talk about the fact that the body is designed to promote health. It's not designed to promote sickness. The inbuilt system that the body uses is this operating system called redox signaling. It's the communication program for every cell in the way that we have an operating system for our computers. And if we can keep that operating at peak performance, then we're giving our body the best opportunity to prevent the problems that come with dysregulation and promote health and maintain it. And so why wouldn't we want to be able to rebuild our internal operating system by drinking redox beverage?
Amazing.
Amazing.
Rich?
Yeah, again, redox is so complicated when you think about all these little pathways. I mean, it's, we joke about it in our training, but the Krebs cycle was just a gosh awful thing to have to remember. We knew there were always tests on that. You've seen that diagram a few times, and yet all the intricate pathways. I think about redox as being this master conductor, because a big orchestra has a lot of moving parts, doesn't it? And those parts, if they're playing out of tune or they're not playing together, it sounds like cacophony. It's just a mixture of junk, really. But can you imagine when you have a master conductor who's orchestrating all the different pieces together? You've got all these intricate pathways, and yet they come together. And it's a baton, and everybody knows that signal. And if the conductor looks at you and does a certain thing, you know what to do as a professional instrument player. So I think of redox as this intricate pathway but very elegant, tiny little things that are controlling all these processes in our bodies, and we truly are fearfully and wonderfully made.
Yeah, that's amazing, really. When you talk about these complex intricacies, right? We know that trillions of redox reactions are happening in the body every day. And it's kind of the conductor of the body, telling the body to do something it already knows how to do. One of the things that I always like to say is redox signaling molecules is helping the body to take care of the body, right? Taking care of it in a way that it already knows how to do. It just needs to be told to do so. So that's great. Okay, next question here. What are the most common questions you receive about redox, right? This is a unique technology, and sometimes it's misunderstood in our field and in our space. What are some of the most frequent questions you receive, and how do you answer them? Go ahead, yeah, Aaron.
I think probably there's two. The most common one, I think, is this like? And it's not like anything else there out in the market. It's a brand new technology. It's a category creator. If you go in the health food store, there's not a shelf for cell signaling supplements. So, you know, people want to know, does it do like a Beamer mat or zeolites? And it's totally different. This is the only cell signaling product in the market, and so it's not like anything else. And it does things that nothing else does. The other question I get is, and I know you guys do too, is how does this work in XYZ disease state? And clearly this is not a drug, so we don't make medical claims. So I just say a couple of things. Does the condition you're talking about involve a cell? This turns on cells. And, you know, I guess that's it.
I guess because my background is so much in nutrition, very often people will say, well, I'm taking X, Y, and Z capsules, right, pills, things like that. Anyone who heard us speak in the medical conference earlier was the whole process is that this is not about digestion. And because it is, as you said, right, the donation of energy, it's energy looking for a place to rest, it's also the facilitator for being able to utilize any of the supplements that we do take that come in capsules, because those are the foods, those are the nutrients, and it's really like both sides of a penny. The redox is the power to do something, and to me I found it's the missing link to help us utilize the nutrition that we might be giving from the Asea Via line, for example. That is, you know, this beautiful partnership that goes together, and what I've seen in practice is that people very often throw way too many supplements in capsules and pills at the body. The body's already overloaded, it's already not digesting well enough anyway, and so it's pretty toxic. So it's really just the power to get everything going.
Yeah.
Rich?
Okay, well, real quickly, you know, redox, I think of kind of a story that many people may be familiar with, David and Goliath. And I think of preparation, because from the outset of the story, it looks like, you know, this insurmountable thing David has to overcome. I think about oxidative stress. I think about things in people's lives out there, you folks, and folks that you know that are facing a Goliath. And we just have to realize what we have here. This is state of the art. It's one of a kind. It's an ability to deal with that Goliath that you may be facing. You know, and it's not just the redox. It's the cell performance line as well. We need to realize that these things can come to bear. They can activate, you know, again, tiny, tiny molecules doing these incredible things, opening, unlocking these pathways. It's almost like you open the door and you've got all these places to go, and they go there. But also, I love all of you, and I want you here at the next conference. And we have to realize, I face problems with people thinking, oh, I'll take a pill and that will solve everything. Let us not in this room think, as powerful as these are, we have to realize it's a redox lifestyle. We have to realize that. So something as basic, this little tiny thing like flossing your teeth, going to the gym, eating better foods, getting proper sleep, all of these things play into this balance that we've talked about. And it's integral to our health in the future. But folks, don't miss. When I saw this research, I just put my hands up and said, hallelujah. Because this can be life-changing. It should be. It is. And if you'll allow these molecules to enter your life on a regular basis, because the Tourette study said, you stop this, the effect goes away. So don't stop it. Adopt a redox lifestyle, and life will be changed.
Well, that ties in nicely to this next question that we receive very often is do I need to take this the rest of my life? And I think, well, he answered the question, right? Don't stop taking the product. So let's move forward, and I guess as we conclude here, the three of you serve on the medical professional board, which we are very grateful for, donating your time and collaborating with us. You're close to the research. You're seeing the product development happen. You've visited twice this year now to see the facility and the technology. What, in your minds, have you seen Asea do in the past year that is helping to solidify our position as global leaders in the space of redox and cellular health?
Well, I was talking to somebody walking over here this morning. I've been involved with Asea 10 and a half years, and the upgrading of everything, the next level that Tyler pointed out, is just mind-boggling on every level. But particularly the research of, you guys coming on board and, being in charge of research around the world. In the studies you just saw and that were presented at the science meeting, it's mind-boggling what this corporation is doing, as well as the technology and just every aspect. This corporation not only is the global leader in cellular health, but they're moving north really quickly. It's exciting.
I think one of the interesting things, other than what you were talking about, yes, which is pretty amazing, and we're looking at the advances that you've been making there, is we made some transitions at the beginning of this year to reformulate the collaboration between the medical board and the science board. And the beauty about this is that our goal, and we hope that we're managing to achieve this for you, is to take on the role of helping you get around languaging, making the languaging of this complex science easier and simpler to share in just bite-sized statements, and then be able to produce with the new website that we have the opportunity to be able to point to a lot more in-depth research that you can use, so you don't have to be the experts. And I hope we're making it easier for you to be able to do that.
Imagine a tip of an iceberg. How much of that iceberg is visible right now? Very, very little, actually. The amazing part is that most of it's below visibility, isn't it? You have to have a vision to see what's under the water. And I think, I've been involved in medical field a long time. And to see this whole redox biochemistry field to go from a nothing, really, just a page or two in my biochemistry textbook, to where it is today with tens of thousands of articles. It's interesting. I pulled just 4 articles. I love just pulling up things and medical challenges that patients have seen in the past week, and I'll on Saturday, I'll just have a little bit of free time and just love to go after those articles. But it's interesting that what you saw today, mainline medical research is talking about, and the articles were all talking about glutathione. Come to think of that, wow. Glutathione. And if you connect the dots you saw this morning, just make that translational leap. And sometimes we go from basic science research, and then we've got to leap translationally to application in real life. And sometimes those dots are a little farther apart, but folks, we're getting there, and this is a burgeoning field. You are privileged to see a glimpse of this now, and we are too. And this company, I just so much thank the company, because I run a business. And when you involve your money into something that is just research-based, that's amazing. You ought to give these guys a hand.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We value your collaboration. We value your expertise in each of your fields. Everyone, please give our panel a round of applause. Okay. Very briefly here, I want to revisit our vision. You've seen this slide now probably 4 or 5 times in the previous 45 minutes here. And that's because we take this vision statement very seriously. As seriously as we take the human pursuit of believe, belong, become, we treat this scientific pursuit with the same gravity. Asea has positioned itself as the leader in the exploding field of redox. And as leaders in that space, we understand the commitment and responsibility that we hold to continue to push the ball forward in this space as far as the state of the art of redox. Research continues with our university partners. Product development continues in our labs at the Redox Center in Utah. And we are committed 100% to leveraging this technology to touch as many lives as possible. Thank you.